There is a silence that is older than history. It is a silence that existed before the first word was spoken, before the first fire was struck, and before the first stone was shaped into a tool. It is the silence of the body shutting down. It is a heavy, irresistible pull of gravity on the eyelids. We are going to explore that silence today. We are going to lie down in the tall grass of the past. We are going to curl up on the stone floors of antiquity. We are going to bury ourselves under the heavy furs of the Ice Age. We are going to trace the history of the one thing that every single human being who has ever lived has done, usually for a third of their entire existence. We are going to talk about sleep. But before we drift back into the deep velvet darkness of the prehistoric night, I have a question for you. It is a question about your current coordinates in this vast world of ours. I want you to find the comment section, and with your heavy, relaxed fingers, I want you to tell me about the surface you are resting on right now. Are you in a bed with crisp, cool sheets? Are you sinking into a soft, worn-out sofa? Are you lying on a carpeted floor? Tell me about the texture of the fabric beneath your head. Let us map the geography of our rest. Now, take a deep breath. Inhale the quiet of the room. Exhale the noise of the day. Let your shoulders sink 2 inches lower. Let us begin. The history of sleep does not begin with the bed. It does not even begin with the human. It begins with the rhythm of the planet itself. For billions of years, the Earth has spun. Light, dark, light, dark. Sun, moon. This binary rhythm is burned into the genetic code of almost every living thing. Even the cyanobacteria, the ancient microscopic scum of the primordial oceans, behave differently when the sun is down. They rest. But we are interested in the human experience. To find the true origin of our sleep, we must travel back millions of years to the time of our distant ancestors, the great apes in the dense, humid forests of Africa. I want you to imagine the twilight in the jungle. The air is thick and heavy with humidity. The insects are beginning their evening chorus, a wall of sound that rises as the sun dips below the canopy. For the great apes, the chimpanzees, the bonobos, and our own forebears, night was a time of extreme danger. The darkness belonged to the leopards. It belonged to the saber-toothed cats. It belonged to the things that could see in the dark better than we could. So, we did not sleep on the ground. To sleep on the ground was to offer oneself as a meal. We slept in the trees. But you cannot simply fall asleep on a branch. If you enter the deep paralysis of REM sleep, the dream sleep, you will lose your muscle tone. You will fall. Gravity is a harsh mistress in the canopy. So, our ancestors developed a technology. It was perhaps the very first architectural technology, the nest. I want you to visualize the construction of this nest. It happened every single evening. It was a ritual. An ape would find a suitable fork in the branches, high enough to be safe, but low enough to be stable. They would take the living branches of the tree, the ironwood, the mahogany, and bend them. They would not break them, they would weave them. They created a platform, a basket of living wood. Then they would refine it. They would strip the smaller, leafy twigs from the surrounding branches and use them to line the nest. They were engineering a mattress. They were creating a cup of comfort. This process took minutes, but it required an understanding of physics, of tension and friction. It was the first bed. Imagine lying in that nest. You are suspended 50 feet above the forest floor. The wind gently sways the entire tree, rocking you. The leaves are soft against your fur. You can smell the sap of the broken twigs and the musky scent of the humid air. You are safe. You are held. This was the default mode of human sleep for millions of years. We were arboreal sleepers. We were sailors on a sea of leaves. But then something changed. The climate shifted. The forests began to shrink. The savannas, the vast open grasslands, began to expand. Our ancestors came down from the trees. We stood upright. We began to walk. And we had to learn to sleep on the ground. This was a terrifying transition. To sleep on the ground is to be vulnerable. There are no walls. There is no ceiling. There is only the horizon. Anthropologists believe that this shift to ground sleeping changed everything about our psychology. Because we could not sleep safely alone, we had to sleep in groups. Visualize a pile of early humans, Homo erectus, huddled together on the open plain. It is a sleep pile. The bodies are pressed close together. This serves two purposes. First, warmth. The nights on the savanna can be surprisingly cold. The heat of another body is the original blanket. Second, protection. If a predator approaches, the movement of the outer sleepers wakes the inner sleepers. It is a collective security system. But the ground is hard, it is unforgiving. It sucks the heat out of your bones. So we began to modify the earth. We didn't just lie in the dirt, we gathered grasses, we gathered soft leaves, we made bedding. We know this because archaeologists have found traces of bedding in South Africa that date back 200,000 years. These were not just piles of grass. They were sophisticated. They were built on layers of ash. Our ancestors had learned that burning the old bedding killed the ticks, the fleas, and the lice. Then they should lay fresh, aromatic camphor leaves on top. The camphor acted as a natural insect repellent. Imagine that scent. The sharp, medicinal, clean smell of camphor leaves, mixed with the smell of wood smoke. You are lying on a soft mat of grass, insulated from the cold earth by a layer of ash. You are pressed against your kin. Above you, the Milky Way is a river of light, so bright it casts shadows. This was the bedroom of the Stone Age. And then came the fire. The domestication of fire was the single most important event in the history of sleep. Before fire, we were subject to the sun. When it got dark, we had to be quiet, we had to hide. But fire gave us a piece of the sun to keep on the ground. Fire did three things. It provided warmth, which meant we could shed our fur. It kept the predators away because animals fear the flame. And it changed our brainwaves. With the safety of the fire, humans could enter a deeper stage of sleep. We call it REM, rapid eye movement. This is when we dream. This is when we process emotions. This is when we consolidate memories. Because we were not constantly waking up in terror of leopards, we could sleep deeper and longer than any other primate. Some scientists believe that this deep, fire-protected sleep is what allowed our brains to grow so large. We dreamed our way to intelligence. Let us fast forward now. The ice is retreating. The Neolithic Revolution is beginning. We are stopping our wandering. We are building houses, we are planting crops, and we are building furniture. We moved to the coast of Scotland, to a place called Skara Brae. It is 5,000 years ago. The people here live in stone houses sunk into the earth to protect them from the fierce Atlantic winds. If you walk into one of these ancient preserved houses today, you will see something instantly recognizable. Against the stone walls there are stone slabs, rectangular boxes made of rock, These are beds. They are the first permanent beds in history. They are not piles of leaves that you sweep away in the morning. They are fixtures. They are furniture. But sleeping on stone is not pleasant. So, we must imagine what went inside them. They would have been filled with heather, with straw, perhaps with animal skins, sheepskins and sealskins. But look closer at the scarabray house. The beds are not all the same size. In every house there is a larger bed on the right and a smaller bed on the left. Anthropologists believe this was the first gendered sleeping arrangement. The man slept on the right, the woman on the left, or perhaps the head of the household on the right. We see the beginning of hierarchy in sleep. Even in rest, there is rank. Let us leave the cold winds of Scotland and travel south, to the heat of the Nile Valley, ancient Egypt. The Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife, which is, in a way, an eternal sleep. But they were also very concerned with their nightly sleep. In Egypt, the bed was a status symbol. The poor slept on the floor, on woven mats of palm fronds. But the rich slept on raised platforms. Why raise the bed? It wasn't just for aesthetics, it was for survival. The floor of an Egyptian house was a highway for scorpions, for snakes, and for rodents. By raising the sleeping surface up on 4 legs, you created a fortress. You could put the legs of the bed in pots of water or oil to stop insects from climbing up. The Egyptian bed was unique. It sloped. It was often higher at the head than at the foot, and at the footboard there was a vertical board to stop you from sliding off in the night. The mattress was made of woven reeds, lashed together with twine. It was springy, ventilated, and cool, essential in the desert heat. But the most alien part of the Egyptian sleep system was the pillow, or rather, the lack of one. If you go to a museum and look at Egyptian sleeping artifacts, you will see objects that look like stands for a wig. They are made of wood, or ivory, or alabaster. They are crescent-shaped cups on a pedestal. These are headrests. You did not rest your cheek on a soft feather pillow. You placed the base of your skull, right where the neck meets the head, onto this hard, curved stand. Your head was suspended in the air. Why? It seems like torture to us, but there were reasons. First, airflow. In a hot climate, a soft pillow wraps around your head and makes you sweat. The headrest allowed the air to circulate around your neck. Second, bugs. It kept your head away from the bedbugs crawling on the mattress. Third, hairstyles. The Egyptians, both men and women, wore elaborate hairstyles and wigs that took hours to prepare. The headrest protected the hair. You slept without moving, preserving your vanity. I want you to imagine the sensation. You are lying on a sloping bed of reeds. Your body is covered in a sheet of fine linen, so thin it is almost transparent. Your neck is resting on polished ivory. The air is still. Outside, the Nile flows quietly. You are protected by amulets of Bez, the dwarf god who scares away the nightmares. As we cross the Mediterranean to ancient Greece and Rome, the bed transforms again. It becomes the center of social life. In Rome, the bed was not just for sleeping. It was the lectus. There was the lectus cubicularis for sleeping, but there was also the lectus triclinaris for dining. The Romans ate while lying down. They read while lying down. They wrote while lying down. The horizontal position was the position of power and leisure. The Roman bed was often made of bronze or wood, sometimes inlaid with silver or gold. It had a mattress. And here we see the true beginning of the luxury bedding industry. If you were a poor Roman, your mattress was stuffed with straw or dried reeds. It crunched when you moved. It eventually broke down into dust and had to be replaced. It was prone to mold. But if you were a wealthy Roman patrician, your mattress was stuffed with wool imported from Gaul, or, if you were truly the 1%, it was stuffed with feathers. Swan's down, goose feathers. Imagine the difference. The transition from sleeping on a crunching bag of grass to sinking into a cloud of feathers. This was the height of decadence. But the Romans also gave us something else, the concept of the separate bedroom. In the Roman villa, there was a specific room called the cubiculum. It was small, it was often dark, it was windowless or had very small windows to keep out the heat and the light. The walls were painted with soothing scenes, gardens, birds, quiet landscapes. They understood that environment mattered. They created a sensory deprivation tank for rest. However, as the Roman Empire fell and Europe entered the Middle Ages, the lights went out. The separate bedroom vanished. We entered the era of the Great Hall. I want you to visualize a medieval manor house. It is the year 1100. It is winter. The stone walls are freezing. The wind howls through the cracks in the shutters. There is only one source of heat, the central hearth, a massive fire burning in the middle of the room. Because of the cold, sleep became communal again. Privacy was a concept that simply did not exist. Everyone slept in the great hall. The lord and lady might have a bed, a large wooden frame with curtains, but it was in the same room. The servants slept on the floor. The knights slept on benches. The dogs slept wherever they wanted. The cows and chickens might even be brought into the lower end of the hall to protect them from the frost and to add their body heat to the room. Imagine the soundscape of this sleep. It is not quiet. There is the crackle of the fire. There is the snoring of 20 people. There is the rustle of straw. There is the breathing of livestock. There is the smell of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, animals, and roasted meat. In this era, the bed itself became a massive investment. A good bed, with a sturdy timber frame and heavy wool curtains, was often the most expensive object a family owned. It was so valuable that it was mentioned specifically in wills. I leave my second-best bed to my daughter. This wasn't an insult. It was a gift of a house's worth of furniture. The curtains were functional. They were thick, heavy wool or velvet. When you closed them, you created a room within a room. They kept the drafts out. They kept the warmth in. They kept the eyes of the servants out. Inside the curtains, it was your own private world. But the most fascinating part of medieval sleep is not the bed, it is the time. We assume that humans naturally sleep for 8 hours in one block. We go to bed at 11 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m., but this is a modern invention. For thousands of years up until the Industrial Revolution, humans slept in 2 shifts. It was called biphasic sleep. Here is the rhythm of the medieval night. You would go to bed early, perhaps 8 shan or 9 p.m., shortly after the sun went down, because candles were expensive and there was little to do in the dark. You would sleep deeply for about 4 hours. This was called the first sleep, or dead sleep. Then, around midnight or 1 a.m., you would wake up. Naturally, the whole world woke up. This period was known as the watch. It lasted for an hour or 2. It was not a time of insomnia or frustration. It was a cherished time. The house was quiet. The fire was banked down to embers. People stayed in bed, they talked to their spouses. It was a time for intimacy, a time for gossip, a time for prayer. Philosophers wrote about how the brain was clearest during this midnight waking. The French word for this time was dorveil, wake, sleep. Neighbors might even visit each other during this time. It was a secret, hidden phase of the night that we have completely lost. After an hour or two of this wakefulness, a wave of sleepiness would return, and you would fall back into the second sleep until dawn. This rhythm was dictated by the absence of artificial light. The night was a landscape with its own geography, its own stops and starts. As we move into the Renaissance, the bed begins to grow. It becomes a stage, the state bed. If you visit the palaces of Europe, Versailles, Hampton Court, you see beds that are terrifyingly grand. They are raised high on daises. They are topped with ostrich feathers. They are draped in gold-embroidered silk. The King of France, Louis XIII, had a ceremony called the lever. Waking up was not a private act. It was a performance. Dozens of courtiers would gather in the king's bedroom to watch him wake up. To be the one to hand the king his shirt was a massive political honor. The bedroom was the seat of government. Sleep was politics. But let us step away from the palaces and look at the common people. The floor, the straw sack. For the peasant, the bed was a sack of burlap filled with straw. But straw has a problem. It has sharp stalks. It pokes. So the sheet was invented not just for cleanliness, but as a barrier against the scratchy mattress. And there were the bed bugs. The phrase, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, is often attributed to the rope beds of this era. The mattress sat on a grid of ropes. Over time, the ropes would sag. To get a good night's sleep, you had to use a wooden tool to tighten the ropes, pulling the mattress flat. You had to sleep tight. And the bugs, they were a constant reality. People used all sorts of methods to fight them. They rubbed the bed legs with arsenic. They hung bags of herbs. They swept the mattress daily. But mostly, they just lived with them. The itch was a part of the night. Let us move forward to the 18th century, the age of enlightenment. The world is becoming brighter. Street lamps are appearing in London and Paris. They are oil lamps, dim and flickering, but they are pushing back the darkness. The night is shrinking, and with the shrinking night, the second sleep begins to disappear. We start to stay up later. We start to consolidate our sleep into one block. But the biggest change is yet to come. The machine, the Industrial Revolution, the 19th century, the steam engine, the factory. Before the factory, time was measured by the sun. You worked when it was light, you slept when it was dark. But a factory is a hungry beast. It costs a lot of money to build, and it needs to run 24 hours a day to be profitable. But humans cannot work 24 hours a day. So, we invented the shift. We broke the connection between the sun and sleep. We forced the human body to wake up at 4 a.m. to the sound of a knocker-upper, a man with a long pole who would walk down the street tapping on bedroom windows to wake the workers, because alarm clocks were too expensive. We forced the human body to work through the night. This was a biological violence. The body wants to sleep at night. The body temperature drops, the melatonin rises. To work against this is to fight millions of years of evolution. And then the final blow to the darkness. Thomas Edison, the light bulb. Before the light bulb, light was precious. A candle cost money. Gas smelled and flickered. But the electric light, it was steady, it was bright, it was cheap, and it was everywhere. We brought the sun inside, we banished the shadows. We turned the night into day. And in doing so, we changed the nature of our rest forever. We began to view sleep not as a rhythm, but as an interruption, a waste of time, a problem to be solved. But even in this industrial clamor, there was comfort to be found. Let us look at the evolution of the mattress itself. For centuries, we slept on dead organic matter, straw, feathers, horsehair, cotton. These materials compressed, they got lumpy, they absorbed moisture. Then, in 1871, a German man named Heinrich Westphal invented the inner spring mattress. He took the steel coils that were used in carriage seats and put them inside a bed. I want you to imagine that feeling. The bounce, the suspension. Instead of lying on a dead sack of material, you were floating on steel air. The springs pushed back. They contoured to the body. It was a revolution in ergonomics. And then the latex foam. And then the memory foam, developed by NASA to cushion astronauts during liftoff. Imagine the sensation of memory foam. It is viscous. It is heat-sensitive. You lie down, and the material slowly melts away from your pressure points. It holds you. It remembers your shape for a few seconds before returning to flat. It is the ultimate evolution of the ape's nest, a surface that perfectly conforms to the sleeper. But let us pause the timeline here. We are in the modern age, but we need to look at the rituals that surround the act of sleeping. The nightwear. For most of history, people slept naked, or they slept in their day clothes if it was very cold. The concept of specific clothes for sleeping, pajamas, is a borrowed one. The word comes from India, pajama, meaning leg clothing. British colonials saw Indian men wearing loose, lightweight trousers tied at the waist. They adopted them for lounging and then for sleeping. Before that, in Europe, there was the nightshirt, a long, shapeless sack of linen. Think of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, the nightcap, a long, conical hat with a tassel. This wasn't a fashion statement, it was a heating system. We lose a lot of heat through our heads. In a drafty, unheated Victorian house, the nightcap was essential survival gear, and the hot water bottle. Before central heating, the bed was a block of ice. You had to preheat it. People used bed warmers, brass pans filled with hot coals from the fire, attached to a long wooden handle. You would slide this pan between the sheets, moving it constantly so as not to scorch the linen. The smell of singed fabric was the smell of bedtime. Then came the ceramic hot water bottle. Heavy stone pigs filled with boiling water. You pushed them to the bottom of the bed to warm your feet. If you were lucky, you wrapped your cold toes around that radiating warmth as the wind rattled the window pane. Let us drift back to the geography of the room, the bedroom door. Closing the door, it seems simple, but it is a profound psychological act. When you close the door, you are separating yourself from the world. You are creating a sanctuary. In the 19th century, with the rise of the germ theory of disease, the bedroom became a place of hygiene. The heavy velvet curtains of the Middle Ages were torn down. They were seen as dust traps, microbe collectors. The metal bed frame replaced the wood. Why? Because you could wipe metal down. You could sanitize it. The bedroom became white, sparse, airy. We wanted our sleep to be clean. We are drifting now. The images are blurring. The stone bed of Scotland, the reed bed of Egypt, the feather bed of Rome, the steel springs of the 20th century. I want you to think about the position you're in right now. Are you a back sleeper, a side sleeper, a stomach sleeper? Throughout history, superstitions surrounded these positions. In medieval times, sleeping on your back was considered dangerous. It left your mouth open for demons to enter. Sleeping on your stomach was considered too animalistic. The correct way was on the right side, hand under the cheek, facing the door, ready to wake, ready to defend. But you do not need to defend anything tonight. The demons are gone, the leopards are gone. The fire is contained in the furnace in the basement. The light is contained in the bulb, and you have turned it off. Let us think about the sound of sleep. In the city, it is the white noise of traffic, a distant ocean of tires on asphalt. In the country, it is the crickets, the wind in the trees. But think of the sounds of the past. The night watchman walking the streets, ringing a bell, shouting, 12 o'clock and all is well. The sound of rain on a thatched roof, a muffled, soft thrumming. The sound of a quill scratching on parchment in the room next door. We have built a fortress around our sleep. We have invented double glazing to keep the noise out. We have invented blackout curtains to keep the light out. We have invented machines that play the sound of rain or the sound of a fan to mask the silence. We are trying to recreate the cave. We are trying to recreate the womb. And yet, despite all our technology, despite our memory foam and our weighted blankets and our climate control, the act itself remains primal. You close your eyes, you slow your breathing, your brain waves slow down. Alpha, theta, delta. You drift away from the shore of consciousness. We are still the ape in the tree, weaving a nest of branches. We are just using different materials. The instinct is the same. To find a soft spot, to be warm, to be safe, to let go. The history of sleep is the history of the search for peace. It is the history of vulnerability. Every night we lay down our weapons. Every night we trust the world enough to close our eyes. There is more to tell. We have not spoken of the dream temples of Greece. We have not spoken of the history of the alarm clock, from the candle with nails in it to the smartphone. We have not spoken of the science of the circadian rhythm. But those are stories for another time. The night is deep, the history is long, and the bed is waiting. For now, let the timeline dissolve. Let the centuries blend together into a soft, gray mist. You are part of this lineage. You are the latest sleeper in a line that stretches back to the beginning of time. You are doing exactly what your ancestors did. You are resting. The stillness is a liquid now. It has filled the corners of the room, rising up from the floorboards, pooling around the legs of the furniture, and settling comfortably around you. We are submerged in the quiet. The history of sleep is vast, and we have only just brushed the surface of the bedding. We have talked about the nest and the stone slab, the fire and the light bulb. But sleep is not just about where we lie. It is about what happens to us when we go there. It is about the mind, the dream, the waking, and the temperature of the air against the skin. We are going to go deeper now. We are going to slide further back into the archives of rest. But before we open the next heavy leather-bound book of history, I want you to make a small adjustment. I want you to focus on the weight that is covering you. In the comments, tell me about your blanket. Is it a heavy weighted quilt that pins you to the mattress? Is it a light, airy sheet that barely touches your skin? Is it a mountain of synthetic fluff, or a flat, dense weave of wool? Describe the physics of your comfort. How much pressure does it take to make you feel safe? Now, let your hands become heavy. Let your feet splay outwards. Let the muscles in your face melt. Let us return to the past. We must speak of the geography of the dream. For modern humans, a dream is a neural firing. It is the brain taking out the trash, sorting memories, filing away the day's events. It is internal. But for the ancients, the dream was external. It was a place you went to. It was a message sent to you. I want you to travel with me to ancient Greece, to the sanctuary of Epidaurus. It is the 4th century BC. You are sick. You have an ailment that the doctors cannot cure. So you come here, to the Asclepieion, the temple of Asclepius, the god of healing. You do not come here for surgery. You come here for incubation. Incubation is the practice of sleeping for a cure. You fast for days. You bathe in cold, sacred springs. And then, at night, you enter the abaton. This is a long, colonnaded dormitory. It is open to the air, but roofed against the rain. The floor is stone. You lay down your mat. Imagine the atmosphere. It is dark, lit only by the flickering oil lamps of the priests. The air smells of incense and burning herbs, laurel and frankincense. You are surrounded by hundreds of other sleepers, all breathing in rhythm, all hoping for a visitation. And then, the snakes. The temple is filled with non-venomous snakes, the sacred animals of the god. They slither freely across the floor. In the dark, as you drift between waking and sleeping, you might feel the cool, dry scales of a snake sliding over your leg or your arm. You do not panic. This is the god touching you. This is the cure. You sleep. And in your sleep you hope that Asclepius will appear to you and tell you what to do. When you wake up, you tell your dream to a priest, and he prescribes a remedy. Sleep was not just rest, it was a medical procedure. It was a communication line to the divine. Let us leave the stone floors of Greece and move to the mechanics of the morning. We talked briefly about the knocker-upper, the human alarm clock. But how else did humans wake up before the iPhone? The struggle to leave the warmth of the bed is universal. It is a battle against inertia that we have been fighting for thousands of years. Consider the candle alarm. In ancient China and later in Europe, if you needed to wake up at a specific time, you took a candle. You knew how fast the wax melted, perhaps an inch every hour. You would stick a metal nail into the wax at the appropriate mark. As the candle burned down during the night, the wax holding the nail would melt. The nail would fall. Clang. It would hit a metal tray placed beneath the candle. A sharp, metallic sound in the silence. Fire and gravity working together to wake you. Or consider the water clock of Plato. He is said to have invented a large water clock that, when the water reached a certain level, forced air through a narrow whistle, creating a sharp, shrieking sound. Imagine waking up to the sound of a pressurized whistle in ancient Athens. But for most of humanity, the alarm was organic. It was the bladder. It was the cold. It was the rooster. The rooster is a cliché, but think about the sound. It is piercing. It cuts through the morning fog. But it wasn't just the rooster. It was the cows needed milking. The pain of the udders would make the cows low and restless. The animals were the clock. The farm was a living machine that required the human to wake up to service it. Let us shift from the farm to the cave. We need to talk about the rhythm of the body itself. The Circadian rhythm. In 1962, a French geologist named Michel Seffre decided to conduct an experiment. He wanted to know what happens to human sleep when you remove the sun, when you remove the clock, when you remove the cues of the world. He lowered himself into a subterranean glacier in the Alps. He stayed there for 2 months. He had a tent, books, food, and a telephone to call the surface, but he had no watch. He had no light from the sun. It was total, absolute darkness and silence, minus the dripping of water. I want you to imagine that existence. The temperature was always freezing. The darkness was pressing against the tent. Seffre slept when he was tired. He ate when he was hungry. What happened? His body drifted. Without the sun to reset his internal clock, his day stretched out. It became 24 hours and 30 minutes, then 25 hours. Sometimes he would sleep for 12 hours at a time. Sometimes he would be awake for 30 hours. He lost all track of time. When his team on the surface called him to tell him the experiment was over, Seffre thought it was mid-August. In reality, it was mid-September. He had lost an entire month. He had slept through it. His mind had compressed time. This experiment proved that sleep is not just a reaction to the dark, it is a cycle generated from within. We carry a clock in our cells. We are time machines. Let us come up from the cave and into the light, the blinding light of the afternoon sun. We are going to Spain. We are going to talk about the siesta. The word siesta comes from the Latin hora sexta, the 6th hour. If you start counting at dawn, the 6th hour is noon, the hottest part of the day. In the agrarian societies of the Mediterranean, working in the fields at 2 p.m. is not just difficult, it is dangerous. The sun is a hammer, so the culture adapted. You work hard in the morning, you stop, you eat a large meal, and then you shut the world out. Visualize a Spanish village in the 1950s. At 1:30 p.m. the shops close. The heavy wooden shutters are pulled across the windows. The streets become deserted. The silence is profound. It is a ghost town. Inside the cool, thick-walled stone houses, the family retreats. They might not get into bed, they might sit in a chair, they might lie on a sofa. But they rest. The post-lunch dip is a biological reality. Your body diverts blood to the stomach to digest food, leaving the brain slightly less oxygenated. You feel drowsy. The siesta honors this biology. It splits the day into 2. You have a morning life, and you have an evening life. This is why dinner in Spain is at 10 p.m. The day is stretched. Sleep is not just a bookend, it is a comma in the middle of the sentence. Now, let us travel north. Far north, to Scandinavia. Here, the relationship with sleep and temperature is inverted. In the Mediterranean, you sleep to escape the heat. In Scandinavia, you sleep to embrace the cold. If you walk through Copenhagen or Stockholm in the winter, you might see a strange sight. A row of baby strollers parked outside a cafe. The parents are inside, drinking coffee. The babies are outside. It is 5 degrees Celsius. The babies are asleep. They are bundled, of course. They are wrapped in wool and sheepskin, tucked into insulated prams. But they are breathing the freezing, crisp air. Nordic parents believe, and the data supports them, that babies sleep longer and deeper in the cold. The fresh air knocks them out. It cleanses the lungs. Imagine the feeling of being that baby. Your body is toasty warm, encased in a cocoon of fur, but your cheeks are cold. The air entering your nose is sharp and icy. The contrast between the warm body and the cold face is a powerful sedative. It is the ultimate coziness. hygge in practice. Let us speak of the fabrics that have held us, the textiles of sleep. For thousands of years, the universal bedding was linen. Linen comes from the flax plant. It is a labor-intensive crop. You have to pull it, ret it, rot it in water, break it, scutch it, and hackle it just to get the fibers. Then you spin it, then you weave it. Linen is miraculous. It is heavy, yet it conducts heat away from the body. It feels cool to the touch. In a world without air conditioning, linen sheets were the only way to stay cool at night. But linen is stiff. It wrinkles. It requires endless ironing. Then came cotton. Cotton is softer. It is warmer. It is easier to dye. But there is a sensory difference. Linen feels like paper or leather. Cotton feels like the cloud. And then the transition to the synthetic. The 1970s. The polyester sheet, the satin-style nylon. These fabrics do not breathe. They trap heat. They create a microclimate of humidity. We traded the cool crispness of flax for the permanent press convenience of plastic. But let's go back to the weight. The weighted blanket is a trendy item today, but historically, all blankets were weighted blankets. A bearskin is heavy. A hand-woven wool blanket, saturated with lanolin to make it waterproof, is incredibly heavy. In pre-modern Europe, people slept under piles of these blankets. The sensation of being crushed into the mattress was the norm. It triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. It feels like a hug. It tells the body, you are safe, you are contained. We stripped the weight away with the invention of the duvet, the continental quilt. It arrived in the English-speaking world in the 1960s and 70s. Suddenly, making the bed was easy. You just shook out one big fluffy bag of feathers. But we lost the layers. We lost the ability to peel back one blanket at a time to regulate temperature. We became binary, hot or cold. Let us talk about the shared bed. We mentioned earlier that privacy is a modern invention. In the 17th and 18th centuries, sharing a bed with a stranger was common. If you traveled and stayed at an inn, you didn't rent a room. You rented half a bed. You would climb in with whoever was already there, a merchant, a farmer, a soldier. Benjamin Franklin and John Adams once had to share a bed at an inn in New Jersey. They spent the night arguing about whether to keep the window open or closed. Franklin wanted it open. He believed in fresh air. Adams was terrified of the night air, believing it carried sickness. This fear of the night air is a major character in the history of sleep. For centuries, people believed the air at night was toxic, miasma. They believed it caused malaria, which literally means bad air. So they sealed the windows. They drew the heavy velvet curtains tight. They slept in hermetically sealed boxes, recycling their own carbon dioxide all night long. It wasn't until the Victorian era and the sanitarians that the window was thrown open. Suddenly, ventilation was a virtue. Sleeping porches were built, screened-in rooms where you could sleep almost outdoors. The draft was no longer an enemy, it was a friend. Let us look at the architecture of the pillow. We talked about the Egyptian headrest. But what about the evolution of soft? For the common medieval person, the pillow was a log of wood with a cloth over it, or a bag of chaff, the husks of grain. Chaff pillows are noisy. Every time you move your head, it sounds like crinkling paper. They produce dust. The feather pillow was the luxury item, but feathers have quills. A cheap feather pillow is a torture device, with sharp points poking through the fabric. To prevent this, a special fabric called ticking was invented. It is a very tight, dense weave of cotton, often striped. It is tight enough to keep the quills in, but loose enough to let the air out so the pillow can compress. And now, the memory foam brick, the cool gel insert. We are trying to engineer the perfect temperature for the head. The phrase, the cool side of the pillow, is a universal human desire. We are constantly flipping, seeking that fleeting moment of heat transfer where the pillow absorbs our excess warmth. Let us consider the lullaby. The history of sleep is also a history of sound. Mothers have been humming to babies for 200,000 years. The lullaby is usually a slow rhythm, mimicking the heartbeat. It is a monotone. It is hypnotic. But have you ever listened to the lyrics of old lullabies? They are terrifying. Rock-a-bye baby, when the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Or the darker folk songs about wolves and loss. Why? Because sleep was a separation. In a world of high infant mortality, putting a child to sleep was a moment of anxiety. The song was a way for the parent to process their own fear, to sing the darkness away. Now, we use white noise machines. We play the sound of rain on a tin roof. We play pink noise, or brown noise. We are using digital static to drown out the digital world. We are drifting towards the east now, to Japan. We must speak of inamuri. This translates to sleeping while present. In the West, if you fall asleep in a meeting or at your desk, it is a sign of laziness. You are fired. In Japan, if you fall asleep in a meeting, it can be a sign of dedication. It shows you have worked yourself to the point of exhaustion. You are present, but you are recharging. Walk onto a Tokyo subway train at 11 p.m. It is silent. Rows of men in suits are sitting with their heads bowed, eyes closed, swaying with the train. They are all asleep. It is a collective, public nap. There is no shame. It is a shared recognition of the hardness of work. There is a trust there. You trust the person next to you not to rob you. You trust the station master to wake you at the terminal. It is a society that has integrated sleep into the public sphere. Let us return to the room you are in. The shadows are longer now. The history is piling up like snow against the door. We have traveled from the snake-filled temples of Greece to the frozen prams of Sweden. We have argued with Benjamin Franklin about the window. We have soaked the flax for the linen. We have set the candle alarm. But the story is not over. We have not yet talked about the chemistry of dreams, the melatonin and the cortisol. We have not talked about the history of the bed warmer pan. We have not talked about the hammock, the sleeping net of the Americas that revolutionized naval travel, the hammock. Let us pause there for a moment. When European sailors arrived in the Caribbean, they saw indigenous people sleeping in nets suspended between trees. They were amazed. Until then, sailors slept on the damp, hard-wooden decks of ships, crawling with rats and soaking in bilge water. The hammock changed everything. It swung with the roll of the ship. You stayed level while the ship moved. It was ventilated. It was off the ground, away from the vermin. The British Navy adopted it. For centuries, the gun deck of a warship was a forest of sleeping sailors swinging in canvas cocoons. Imagine that motion, the creak of the wood, the rhythmic sway, the smell of salt and tar. Sleep was a constant motion, a rocking by the ocean itself. We are hovering now. We are suspended like those sailors. The bed is a time machine. When you climb into it, you are traveling forward in time. You close your eyes, and in a blink, 8 hours have passed. It is the only form of time travel we have mastered. The heavy velvet curtains are drawn. The candle is burning down to the mark. The wax is softening. But the nail has not fallen yet. There is still time. The silence is waiting. The pillow is cool. The story continues to unfold in the dark, even if no one is listening. The quiet has taken on a texture now, hasn't it? It feels almost granular, like the fine silt settling at the bottom of a slow-moving river. The room you are in has ceased to be a room. It has become a vessel, drifting on the current of this narrative. We have moved through the grand sweep of history, touching on the stone beds of the Neolithic and the swinging hammocks of the high seas. But we are not done. There are still so many rooms to unlock in the house of sleep. There are still so many textures to feel, so many sounds to hear, so many shadows to explore. We are going to slow down even further. We are going to zoom in. We are going to look at the microscopic details of how humanity has tried to conquer the night. But before we turn the page, I want you to engage in one small, grounding exercise. In the comments, I want you to tell me about the light. Not the light of the sun, but the artificial light that might still be bleeding into your space. Is there a street lamp casting an orange glow through your curtains? Is there the tiny, blinking red eye of a smoke detector? Is there the pale blue luminescence of a digital clock? Or is it pitch black? Describe the visual noise of your darkness. Let us map the constellations of our bedrooms. Now, let your breathing become a circle. In and out, no corners, no pauses, just a continuous loop. Let us return to the history. We left off swaying in the hammocks of the British Navy, but we must return to dry land. We must return to the domestic sphere. We need to talk about the architecture of privacy and the invention of the hallway. This sounds mundane. A hallway. You walk through them every day without thinking. But for most of history, the hallway did not exist. In a medieval house, or even a Renaissance palace, the rooms were arranged enfilade. This means they were strung together like beads on a necklace. To get from room A to room C, you had to walk through room B. Imagine the implications for sleep. If you were sleeping in room B, your bedroom was also a thoroughfare. Servants, family members, guests, anyone moving through the house had to pass by your bed. Sleep was not private. It was a public act, constantly interrupted by the traffic of the household. Then, in the 17th century, architects began to introduce the corridor, a separate lane for traffic. Suddenly, the bedroom became a cul-de-sac. It became a destination, not a route. You could close the door, and the traffic of the house would flow past you, not through you. This architectural shift fundamentally changed the psychology of rest. It allowed for true withdrawal. It allowed for the cultivation of the self in the dark. Let us step inside this newly private room and look at the objects on the bedside table. Specifically, let us look at the history of the sedative. Humanity has always struggled to turn off the mind. We have always sought chemical assistance to reach the shores of sleep. In ancient Sumeria, they cultivated the poppy. They called it the joy plant. For thousands of years, opium was the primary tool for the insomniac. It was dissolved in wine to create laudanum. In the Victorian era, laudanum was cheaper than gin. It was sold in every pharmacy. It was given to teething babies. It was taken by poets and factory workers alike. It produced a heavy, dreamless, narcotic sleep. It was effective, but it was dangerous. It was the sleep of oblivion, not restoration. Then there was valerian root. It smells like dirty socks. The Romans used it. The medieval herbalists used it. It is a mild sedative, a root that grows in damp earth. It was brewed into tea, a funky, earthy potion that lowered the heart rate. And let us not forget the heavy, boozy sleep of the nightcap. Alcohol. For centuries, a warm brandy or a hot toddy was the standard prescription for a restless mind. But alcohol is a trickster. It helps you fall asleep, yes. It knocks out the cortex. But later in the night, as the body metabolizes the ethanol, it produces a rebound effect. It fragments sleep. It prevents the deep restorative REM cycles. The sleep of the drunkard is not the sleep of the healed, but perhaps the most fascinating sleep aid was not a drug, but a smell. In the 18th and 19th centuries, hop pillows became popular. King George III of England, mad and sleepless, slept on a pillow stuffed with dried hops, the same flour used to make beer. The scent of hops is resinous, piney, and bitter. It contains a chemical called methylbutanol, which is a mild sedative. Imagine sleeping with your head buried in a sack of dried flowers, breathing in the aroma of a brewery field. It was aromatherapy before the term existed. Let us move from the nose to the skin, the temperature. We spoke of the hot water bottle, but we did not speak of the bed curtains in winter. I want you to visualize the box bed of Brittany and the Netherlands. In these cold coastal regions, the bed was not just a piece of furniture, it was a cupboard. It was built into the wall. You opened 2 sliding wooden doors and climbed into a small, dark wooden cave. You closed the doors behind you. Inside, it was pitch black. It was warm. The body heat of the sleepers, often a whole family squeezed into one cupboard, would raise the temperature quickly. It was cozy, but it was also stifling. These box beds were often short. People slept sitting up, propped against bolsters. Why? Because of a superstition that lying flat was for the dead. To sleep sitting up was to prove you were still alive. It also helped with chest congestion in an era of chronic bronchitis and tuberculosis. Imagine the feeling of the box bed, the smell of the wood, oak or pine, the smell of the straw mattress, the intense darkness, the muffled sounds of the house outside the wooden doors. It was a womb of wood, a hibernation chamber for the long, damp winters. Now, let us travel to the tropics, to the heat. How do you sleep when the air itself is a heavy, hot blanket? We go to India, to the invention of the punkah. Before electric fans, the British colonialists in India could not sleep in the stifling heat. So, they installed the punkah. This was a large, rectangular frame covered in cloth, suspended from the ceiling over the bed. A rope was attached to it. This rope went through a hole in the wall to the veranda outside. On the veranda sat a punkahwala, a servant whose sole job was to pull the rope. Back and forth, all night long. The motion of the punkah created a gentle, rhythmic breeze over the sleeper. It kept the mosquitoes away. It cooled the sweat on the skin. Think of the dynamic here. One person's sleep depended entirely on another person's wakefulness. The rhythm of the sleeper's breath was synced to the rhythm of the servant's arm. If the pulling stopped, the sleeper would wake up in a sweat and shout. It was a sleep purchased with labor. It is a stark reminder that throughout history, rest has often been a luxury commodity. Let us move away from the politics of sleep and back to the materials. We need to talk about the evolution of the pajama, We touched on the nightshirt. But let's look at the fabric. Flannel. Flannel is a woven fabric, usually cotton or wool, that has been brushed. The brushing process raises the fine fibers, creating a fuzzy, soft surface. This fuzz traps air. It creates a layer of insulation against the skin. In the 19th century, red flannel was considered to have medicinal properties. It was believed to cure rheumatism. People would wrap their painful joints in red flannel before bed. Then came silk, the fabric of emperors. Silk is a protein fiber produced by the mulberry silkworm. It is smooth, it is cool, it is slippery. Sleeping in silk pajamas on satin sheets is a comedy of friction. You slide around the bed like a puck on ice. But silk regulates temperature beautifully. It warms up when you are cold and cools down when you are hot. It is the original performance fabric. And now, the modern, technical sleepwear. Fabrics infused with bioceramics that reflect infrared energy back into the body to aid recovery. We have turned our pajamas into medical devices. But what about the soundscape? The lullaby of the machine. In the 1930s and 40s, a new sound entered the bedroom: the radio, the shipping forecast. In the UK, the shipping forecast is a late-night radio broadcast detailing the weather conditions for the seas around the British Isles. Viking, North Ootsire, South Ootsire, Forties, Cromarty. It is a litany of place names and wind speeds. It is read in a slow, deliberate, monotone voice. Millions of people who have never set foot on a boat listen to it to fall asleep. It is a poem of data. It is reassuring. It tells you that someone is watching the storm, so you don't have to. It is the ultimate white noise, information that doesn't demand your attention. Then came the television. The blue light flicker. For a generation, falling asleep to the hum of the Late Show or the static of a signed-off channel became the norm. The sleep timer button on the remote control was a major innovation. It acknowledged that the TV was not just for entertainment, it was a sedative. It was a nightlight that told stories until you drifted off. Let us look at the pillow again, but this time let's look at what is inside the pillow of the future. We are seeing the rise of the smart pillow. Pillows with sensors that track your movement. Pillows with speakers that play bone conduction music that only you can hear. Pillows that gently inflate and deflate to nudge your head if you start snoring. We are entering the age of the quantified self. We track our sleep stages on our wrists. We look at graphs of our REM cycles in the morning. We gamify our rest. I got a sleep score of 85 last night. We are turning the most natural act into a performance metric. But beneath the data, the body remains the same. The need is the same. Let us travel to the high Arctic, to the land of the midnight sun. How do the Inuits sleep when the sun doesn't set for 3 months? They use the architecture of the igloo or the heavy tent. They use thick furs to block out the light. But historically, their sleep patterns were different. In the summer, when the hunting was good and the sun was up, they slept less. They took short naps. They followed the rhythm of the seal and the caribou, not the rhythm of the clock. Sleep was opportunistic. You grabbed it when you could. In the winter, the long night, they slept more, much more. It was a time of hibernation, of storytelling, of conserving energy. This elasticity of sleep, expanding in winter, contracting in summer, is something we have lost with our artificial 9-to-5 schedules. We force the same sleep pattern in July as we do in December. fighting against our own biology. Let us go back to the bed itself, the bed frame. We mentioned the ropes. But what about the four-poster bed? The posts were not just for hanging curtains. In medieval times, the roofs of castles and manors were often leaky. Thatch would rot. Dust and debris would fall from the ceiling. Insects would drop. The canopy, the tester, was an umbrella. It was a shield. It protected the sleeper from the falling detritus of the house. And the height. Why were old beds so high? You often needed a step stool to get into a Victorian bed. It was about drafts. Cold air sinks. The floor is the coldest place in the room. By raising the bed 3 feet off the ground, you lifted the sleeper above the layer of cold air that settled on the floorboards. You were sleeping in the warmer strata of the room. It was also about storage. Underneath that high bed was valuable real estate. It was where the trundle bed was kept, a low bed on wheels that could be pulled out for servants or children. It was where the chamber pot was kept. Ah, the chamber pot. The gazunder, because it goes under the bed. We cannot talk about the history of sleep without talking about the history of the midnight bathroom break. For most of history, if you had to go at 2 a.m., you did not walk down the hall to a tiled bathroom. You reached under the bed. You found the ceramic or pewter pot. You used it in the dark, in the cold room, and then you covered it with a lid and shoved it back, under. The smell was a reality of the morning. The job of emptying the pots, the slops, was the lowest job in the household. It is a reminder of how sanitized our modern night has become. We have flushed away the smells and the discomforts. Let us drift back to the concept of the sleepover. In the 19th century, bundling was a courtship ritual in parts of America and Europe. A young man and a young woman were allowed to sleep in the same bed, to talk and get to know each other. But there was a catch: they were fully clothed. And often a bundling board, a large wooden plank, was placed between them in the bed. It was a way to allow intimacy without contact, a way to be warmed together in a cold house without breaking societal rules. It was a sleep of tension, of whispering in the dark across a wooden barrier. Now, let's think about the solitary nap, the power nap. Salvador Dali, the surrealist painter, had a technique. He would sit in an armchair with a heavy metal key in his hand. He would place a metal plate on the floor beneath his hand. He would drift off. The moment he entered deep sleep, his muscles would relax. He would drop the key. Clang. It would hit the plate and wake him up. He believed that the moment between waking and sleeping, the hypnagogic state, was where the creativity lived. He wanted to surf that edge, dipping his toe into the dream and then snapping back to capture the imagery. He didn't want to sleep. He wanted to harvest the subconscious. Thomas Edison did the same thing with steel balls. Einstein did it. It was a way of hacking the sleep cycle for genius. Let us return to the atmosphere of the room, the dust. Dust motes dancing in a shaft of moonlight. What is dust? It is mostly us. Dead skin cells, bits of fabric, pollen. The bedroom is an ecosystem. In the 17th century, the microscope was invented. For the first time, people looked at the dust. They looked at the bedding. And they saw the mites. It was a moment of horror, the realization that we are never sleeping alone, that our sanctuary is a zoo. But it is a harmless zoo. The mites are the cleanup crew. They are part of the cycle. Let us think about the library of sleep, the bedtime story. Why do we read before bed? It is a transition ritual. It focuses the eye and the mind on a single point. It stops the racing thoughts. In the Middle Ages, reading was often done aloud, but reading silently, subvocalization, is a more internal act. It mimics the voice of the dream. The choice of book matters. You don't want a thriller that spikes the adrenaline. You want a pastoral novel, a bore, a history book perhaps, something that flows like a slow river. The book is a paper pillow for the mind. And now the digital book, the e-reader, the warm light setting. We have circled back to the illuminated manuscript. We are holding a glowing tablet in the dark, just as our ancestors held a candle. The technology changes, but the posture, curled up, seeking a story, remains the same. We are deep in the night now. The timeline is stretching out. We have slept in the trees. We have slept on the stone. Oh, we have slept in the cupboard. We have slept on the high seas. We have worn wool and silk and polyester. We have breathed in camphor and hops and lavender. We have woken to the sun, the rooster, the candle nail, and the smartphone. We have dreamed of gods and snakes and falling. But the one constant is the surrender. The moment when the chin drops to the chest, when the book slides from the hand, when the thoughts lose their cohesion and turn into images. That moment is the same for the Neanderthal and the astronaut. It is the universal heritage of the species. We are going to linger here for a while longer, in this space between the history and the dream. I want you to visualize a field of lavender in Provence. It is dusk, the air is cooling. The purple flowers are gray in the twilight. The smell is overwhelming, calm, floral, medicinal. You are lying in the middle of the field. The earth is warm beneath you. The sky is turning a deep, bruised indigo. The first star appears. There is no roof, there are no walls. Only the scent and the sky. This is the original bedroom, the planet, and you are safe here. The wind rustles the lavender. It sounds like the ocean. It sounds like breath. The story is pausing. The page is turning, but very slowly. The ink is drying. You are heavy. You are warm. You are part of the history. Rest. Wait. There is one more room to explore. The room of the future. Sleep pods, cryogenic suspension. We dream of sleeping for years to travel to the stars. We dream of skipping time. In science fiction, sleep is the way we conquer distance. We climb into a glass tube. We are frozen. We wake up 100 years later in a new world. It is the ultimate extension of the night. The sleep that outlasts death. But that is a cold sleep. We want the warm sleep. The sleep of the Sunday afternoon. The sleep of the rainy day. The sleep of the cat in the sunbeam. The cat. Let us look at the masters of sleep. Cats sleep for 16 hours a day. They do not apologize for it. They do not track it on an app. They simply find the warmest spot, curl into a circle, and vanish. They are our gurus. We should aspire to the shamelessness of the catnap. So, look at your own hands now. They are still. Look at your feet. They are still. The history of sleep is written in your body. Your bones know how to rest on the earth. Your skin knows how to seek the warmth. Your mind knows how to drift. You do not need to learn how to sleep. You just need to remember. Remember the nest. Remember the fire. Remember the heavy quilt. Let the memory take over. The silence is absolute now. The story is a whisper. The whisper is a breath. The breath is yours. The silence has deepened, expanding into a vast, echoless cavern. The air in the room feels thicker, heavier, as if the molecules, themselves have slowed down to listen. We have wandered through the corridors of history, peering into the sleeping quarters of kings and peasants, sailors and astronauts. We have touched the linen, smelled the lavender, and heard the crackle of the hearth fire. But the journey is not over. The night is long, and the archives of rest are infinite. There is a particular kind of stillness that comes after the story has been told but before the book is closed. It is a suspended moment. We are in that moment now. We are hovering. Before we drift further into the mists of time, I want you to perform one small, microscopic check-in. I want you to locate the tension in your jaw. Is your tongue pressed against the roof of your mouth? Are your teeth clenched? In the comments, simply type the word release if you have let go of that tension. Let it be a signal to your body and to the others in this quiet digital room. Unhinge the jaw slightly. Let the tongue fall to the floor of the mouth. Let the face become a blank slate. Now, let your eyelids grow heavy, like theater curtains made of velvet. Let us return to the narrative. We have spoken of the bed, the room, and the object. But we have not fully explored the folklore of sleep. The monsters under the bed, the guardians of the night. Every culture has its night terrors. In medieval Europe, there was the mare, the root of the word nightmare. The mare was a goblin, a heavy spirit that would come into the room and sit on the sleeper's chest. This was how they explained sleep paralysis, that terrifying state where the mind wakes up but the body is still asleep and paralyzed. You can't move. You feel a pressure on your chest. To the medieval mind, this wasn't biology. It was a visitation. It was the mare riding you. To prevent this, people would hang hagstones, stones with naturally occurring holes in them, above the bed. Or they would place a knife under the pillow. Iron was thought to repel spirits. So the bed was a battleground defended by talismans. In Japan, there is the Baku. This is a benevolent spirit, a chimera with the trunk of an elephant, the eyes of a rhinoceros, and the tail of an ox. The Baku eats bad dreams. If you wake up from a nightmare, you can call out to the Baku 3 times. Baku-san, come eat my dream. And the creature will come and consume the nightmare so it cannot return. But you have to be careful. If you call the Baku too often, it might eat your good dreams too, leaving you empty. In Native American culture, specifically the Ojibwe people, there is the dream catcher. We see these everywhere now, sold in gift shops, but their origin is specific. It is a web woven on a willow hoop. The belief is that the night air is filled with dreams, both good and bad. The dream catcher acts as a filter. The bad dreams get caught in the web and perish in the first light of dawn. The good dreams know the way. They pass through the center hole and slide down the feathers to the sleeper below. Imagine sleeping under that web. Imagine the invisible traffic of dreams getting caught in the net above your head. It is a beautiful, comforting technology of the spirit. Let us move from the spiritual to the medicinal. The concept of the sleeping cure. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, neurasthenia, nervous exhaustion, was a common diagnosis, especially for women. The prescription was the rest cure, pioneered by Dr. Silas Weir Mitchell. The patient was confined to bed for 6 to 8 weeks. They were not allowed to read. They were not allowed to write. They were not allowed to sew. They were spoon-fed milk and heavy, fatty foods. The idea was to turn the human into a vegetable, to shut down the mind completely so the nerves could rebuild. It sounds peaceful, but it was often maddening. The writer Charlotte Perkins Gilman wrote The Yellow Wallpaper, based on her experience of the rest cure. It was a prison of enforced sleep. It shows us the dark side of rest, when it is not a choice but a sentence. But let us look at the voluntary retreat, the sanatorium. In the mountains of Switzerland and Davos, people with tuberculosis went to sleep in the cold, thin air. They lay on balconies, wrapped in furs for hours a day. This was the liegecure, the lying cure. Thomas Mann wrote The Magic Mountain about this world, a world where time dissolves. When you do nothing but rest, days blend into weeks. The calendar loses its meaning. The only rhythm is the meal tray and the thermometer. There is a seduction in that. To step out of the rushing river of life and just lie on a balcony, watching the snow fall on the Alps. To be professionally idle. Let us shift gears to the architecture of the communal sleep, the dormitory. We talked about the medieval hall, but think of the boarding school, the army barracks, rows of identical iron beds, the lack of privacy, the soundscape of 50 people breathing. There is a strange comfort in the barracks. You are never alone. If you wake up in the night, you hear the presence of the tribe. It is a return to the safety of the cave, but it is also a discipline. The beds must be made perfectly. Hospital corners. The sheet must be so tight a coin can bounce off it. Sleep is regulated, inspected, and militarized. And the submarine, hot bunking. In a submarine, there is often not enough space for everyone to have a bed. So, 3 sailors share 2 bunks. When one wakes up to go on watch, another climbs into the warm bed he just vacated. The bed never gets cold. It is a perpetually occupied space. It is intimate in a purely functional way. You are sleeping in the ghost of another man's body heat. It is the ultimate efficiency of rest. Let us talk about the sound of the city at night. In the 19th century, cities were loud, but different loud. Iron wheels on cobblestones, horses, street vendors shouting. To combat this, the wealthy lined their bedrooms with cork. Marcel Proust, the French writer, famously lined his bedroom in Paris with cork to shut out the noise of the world so he could write and sleep during the day. He created a sealed capsule of silence. Today, we use noise-canceling headphones. We wear soft silicone earplugs. We are still trying to build that cork room to create a bubble of void in the middle of the chaos. Let us consider the evolution of the alarm clock's snooze button. It was invented in the 1950s, General Electric Telecron. It gave us 9 minutes. Why 9? Because of the mechanics of the gears. 10 minutes was too hard to engineer physically, so they settled on 9. Those 9 minutes are a strange, liminal space. You drift back into a fragmented dream. You are cheating reality. It is a micro-rebellion against the day. We have become addicted to the snooze, to that stolen time. But let's go further back to the absence of time. The concept of timelessness in sleep. In deep meditation, the brain waves slow down to theta and delta, the same as deep sleep. Monks who meditate for hours are essentially sleeping while awake. They are accessing the restorative power of rest without losing consciousness. Is this the future of sleep? Will we learn to rest actively? Let us look at the animal kingdom again, the hibernation of the bear. The bear does not just sleep, it changes its metabolism. Its heart rate drops to 8 beats per minute. It does not eat, drink, or produce waste for months. It recycles its own proteins. It is a miracle of biology. Scientists are studying bears to see if humans can do this for long-haul space travel. Can we trigger a hibernation gene? Can we become bears? Imagine entering that state, the slow, deep winter sleep. The world outside is frozen, but you are burning a low, steady pilot light within. You wake up in the spring, thin and hungry, but renewed. It is a death and a rebirth every year. Let us return to the tactile, the foot of the bed. Why do we tuck the sheets in? It restricts movement. It goes back to the draft again. But it is also about containment, swaddling. We swaddle babies to stop their Moro reflex, the startle reflex where their arms fling out. Swaddling holds them together. Tucking the sheets is adult swaddling. It creates a pocket of tension. It anchors us to the mattress and the pillow fort. Every child builds one. Why? To lower the ceiling, to make a small defensible space. We crave the nook, the alcove, the snug. Even as adults, we like a canopy bed or a sleeping bag. The sleeping bag is a portable womb. You zip yourself in. You are a chrysalis. Let us travel to the desert, the Bedouin tent. They sleep on rugs on the sand. The tent is woven from black goat hair. It is loose weave. During the day, the sun heats the air outside, and the hot air rises through the weave, pulling cool air in from the bottom. It is air-conditioned. At night, the weave tightens as it cools, trapping the heat. It is a smart fabric, thousands of years old. Sleeping on the sand contours to the body. It is the original memory foam, but it is endless. Let us think about the hammock again, but in the jungle, the Amazon. You sleep off the ground not just because of snakes, but because of the damp. The floor of the rainforest is wet, but the hammock forces you to sleep on your back in a curve. It is hard to turn over. It is a sleep of suspension. You are a fruit hanging from the tree. And the sound of the jungle. It is loud. Frogs, cicadas, monkeys, a wall of white noise. The indigenous people sleep through it because it is the sound of safety. Silence in the jungle is scary. It means a predator is stalking. Noise is good. We, in the modern world, crave silence. But maybe we are wrong. Maybe we need the hum. Let us look at the phenomenon of sleep learning. In the mid-20th century, there was a fad. Put a speaker under your pillow. Learn French while you sleep. Learn calculus. It turns out it doesn't really work for facts. You can't learn a new language, but you can reinforce memories. If you study French vocabulary while awake, and then play those words while you sleep, you remember them better. The brain is reviewing the tape. Sleep is the librarian of the mind. It is shelving the books. It is dusting the archives. Let us think about the night shift of the body. While you sleep, your spinal fluid flows faster. It washes through the brain, clearing out the metabolic waste, the amyloid plaques that cause Alzheimer's. It is a literal brainwashing. Your skin produces collagen. Your muscles repair micro tears. Your liver processes toxins. You think you are doing nothing, but you are busier than ever. You are a construction site. Sleep is the maintenance crew coming in after the office workers have gone home. Let us drift back to the room. The shadows have moved. The light has changed. We have explored the fear of the mare and the comfort of the Baku. We have lain on the balcony of the sanatorium and in the bunk of the submarine. We have zipped ourselves into sleeping bags and tucked our sheets tight. We have acknowledged the biology of the bear and the architecture of the tent. But the most important thing is simply the feeling of letting go. There is a phrase, falling asleep. Falling. It implies a loss of control, a descent. You are standing on the edge of a cliff of consciousness, and you have to jump. You have to trust that the parachute will open. You have to trust that the bottom is soft. Every night is a leap of faith, and you have done it thousands of times. You are an expert at falling. Let us linger on the edge. Visualize a feather dropping in a vacuum. It falls slowly, drifting, swaying. No resistance. That is your mind right now. A feather, falling. The history is a soft landing pad below you. Millions of years of sleepers are there to catch you. The Neanderthal in the cave, the Egyptian on the headrest, the sailor in the hammock, the child in the fort. They are all sleeping, they are all breathing. You are joining the chorus. The silence is the song is slow. The book remains open, the ink is still wet. The page is vast and white. Rest in the white space. Wait, there is the window. The window is open, a crack. The night air is coming in. It is cool. It smells of rain and wet pavement. Or maybe cut grass. That is the breath of the world. Inhale it. Exhale the history. Inhale the night. Exhale the day. We are drifting towards the final chapter, but we are not there yet. There is no rush. There's never any rush in the land of sleep. Time is elastic here. It stretches. It bends. You are safe in the bend of time. The silence has settled into the room like a fine layer of dust, coating every surface, every object, every thought. It is a preservation layer. We are fossilizing in the quiet. The narrative of sleep is a long, winding river, and we have simply drifted around another bend. We have seen the wooden pillows of Egypt and the cork-lined walls of Paris, but the river flows on. There are currents we have not yet felt, depths we have not yet sounded. We are going to continue our slow float downstream, but before we dip our oars back into the water, I want you to perform a small audit of your own comfort. I want you to focus on your pillow. In the comments, tell me about its density. Is it a soft, collapsible cloud that your head sinks right through? Is it a firm, memory foam brick that pushes back? Is it lumpy with age? Is it cool on the underside? Describe the architecture of the support beneath your skull. Now, let the back of your neck lengthen. Let the shoulders drop away from the ears like heavy coats sliding off a hanger. Let us return to the history. We must speak of the transition object. In the nursery, we call it a teddy bear or a blankie. Psychologists call it a transitional object. It is a bridge between the safety of the mother and the independence of the self. But adults have them too. We just disguise them. Consider the history of the stuffed animal. It is surprisingly recent. For millennia, children slept with hard objects, wooden dolls, rag dolls made of scraps, or smooth river stones warmed by the fire. But in 1902, prompted by a cartoon of Theodore Roosevelt refusing to shoot a bear cub, the teddy bear was born. Suddenly, the bedmate was soft, it was furred, it was huggable. This changed the tactile experience of sleep. It introduced the concept of cuddling something that wasn't alive. It is a simulated comfort. For adults, the transitional object might be a specific pillow, or the edge of the duvet rubbed between thumb and forefinger, or a body pillow. The body pillow, the dakimakura in Japan, is a human-sized bolster. You wrap your leg around it. It aligns the hips, yes, but it also mimics the presence of another body. It is a phantom limb of comfort. We are social sleepers, even when we are alone. Let us move from the object to the light. The nightlight. For most of history, the nightlight was the fire. The embers of the hearth cast a dull red glow across the room. It was the eye of the house, watching over the sleepers. But in the 19th century, with the invention of porcelain, we saw the lithophane. This is a fascinating, boring object. It is a piece of thin porcelain with an image carved into it. Varying thicknesses. When it sits on a table, it looks like a lumpy white cup. But when you put a candle inside it, the light shines through the varying thicknesses, revealing a picture. A landscape, a face, a sleeping child. It was a magic lantern for the bedside table. It provided a dim, holy glow. Then came the electroluminescent panel, the standard plug-in nightlight of the 1980s, that pale, sickly green square. It uses very little electricity. It doesn't get hot. It is the color of radium, of deep-sea biology. It is just enough light to navigate the room, but not enough to wake the brain. It is the lighthouse of the hallway. Let us travel to the architecture of the boudoir. The word comes from the French boudoir, which means to sulk. A boudoir was originally a sulking room, a place for a woman to withdraw from the court, from her husband, from society. It evolved into the dressing room and the bedroom. But think of the ritual of the boudoir, the brushing of the hair, 100 strokes. This was not just vanity. It was a meditative practice, the rhythmic pull of the boar bristle brush through the hair, the sound of the bristles, the repetition. It was a way of unspooling the day, a way of grooming the self into a state of rest. And the washing of the face, the cold water, the removal of the paint, the makeup, the public mask. Sleep requires nakedness, not just of the body, but of the face. We scrub away the persona to reveal the sleeper underneath. Let us look at the geography of the communal longhouse. We talked about the medieval hall, but let's go to the Vikings, or the Iroquois. In a Viking longhouse, there are raised wooden benches running along the walls. This is where you sit during the day. At night, you lay furs on these benches and they become beds. The fire is in a long trench in the center. The smoke rises to the thatched roof. Imagine the sense of community. You are sleeping in a line, head to toe, or side by side, with your entire clan. 50 people. You hear every breath. You hear the mutterings of the dreamers. In this environment, storytelling was the prelude to sleep. The skald, the poet, or the elder would tell the sagas, the rhythmic, alliterative poetry of the Norse Eddas. Hearken to me, all holy kinds. The voice of the storyteller in the semi-darkness acts as a collective lullaby. It synchronizes the group. They drift off together on the same narrative wave. Let us shift to the sensation of the hypnic jerk. You know the feeling. You are drifting off. You are floating. And suddenly, snap, your whole body jerks. You feel like you are falling. Your heart races. You wake up. What is this? Evolutionary biologists have a theory called the arboreal hypothesis. It suggests that this is a ghost reflex from our days sleeping in trees. As your muscles relax too quickly, the primitive part of your brain, the monkey brain, thinks, "Oh no, I'm falling out of the tree." It sends a panic signal to the muscles to grab the branch. You are not falling out of a tree. You are in a bed. But for a split second, you are an ape in the canopy of the Pliocene era. It is a biological memory of gravity. Let us talk about the waterbed, the 1970s and 80s, a vinyl bladder filled with hundreds of gallons of water. It was marketed as the ultimate sensual experience. But think about the physics of it. When you move, the bed moves. It creates a wave. If you sleep with a partner, their movement rocks you. It required a heater. Without a heater, the massive thermal mass of the water would suck the heat out of your body and give you hypothermia. So you were sleeping on a giant, heated, sloshing bag. It was an attempt to return to the womb, to float in amniotic fluid. It was heavy. It required reinforced floors. It leaked. It was a disaster of home furnishings. But for a moment, we tried to turn sleep into a nautical experience inside the suburbs. Let us look at the mask, the eye mask, portable darkness, silk or satin. The sensation of the mask is specific. It adds a slight pressure to the eyelids. This pressure triggers the oculocardiac reflex, a mild lowering of the heart rate when pressure is applied to the eyes. It creates a sensory deprivation tank for the face. It tells the brain, the sun has set, it is night. Even if you are on a plane at noon, it is a way of forcing the biology to obey, regardless of the environment. Let us discuss the white linen of the hotel. Why are hotel sheets always white? It was a trend started by Weston with the heavenly bed. White signifies cleanliness. You can bleach white. You can see that it is pristine, but psychologically white is a halo effect. It suggests a cloud. It suggests heaven. It is neutral. It has no pattern to distract the eye. When you climb into a white bed, you are climbing into a blank page. A reset button. Let us travel to the Himalayas, the sleep of the high altitude, Sherpas and climbers. At 18,000 feet, there is less oxygen. The body engages in Cheney-Stokes breathing during sleep. You stop breathing for a few seconds, then you gasp. Sleep is fitful. It is light. The dreams are vivid and hallucinogenic due to the hypoxia. To sleep in a tent on the side of Everest, anchored to the ice, with the wind howling at 100 miles per hour outside. This is the extreme edge of human rest. The sleeping bag is rated to 40 degrees. You sleep with your water bottle inside the bag so it doesn't freeze. You sleep with your boots inside the bag. It is survival sleep. It is sleep as a battery recharge, nothing more. Let us return to the warmth. The fireplace, the inglenook. In Old English cottages, the fireplace was huge, and inside the fireplace on either side of the fire were benches. These were the inglenooks. On cold winter nights, the very old and the very young would sleep there. Literally inside the chimney breast, the closest you could get to the heat without burning. Imagine the soot, the smell of burning peat, the radiant heat on your face while your back remains against the cold stone. It is a primal, troglodyte comfort. Let us look at the sleep sack of Europe. In Germany and Austria, the bed is made differently. There is no top sheet, there is only the bottom sheet and a duvet, the decke. But often, the duvet is folded in a specific way, or it is single-sized. If two people share a bed, they often have two separate duvets, two separate cocoons. This avoids the blanket war. It acknowledges that sleep is an individual thermal event. You regulate your own microclimate. Let us talk about the sound of the fan, the mechanical whir, the drone. For many, silence is too loud. Silence allows the creaks of the house to be heard. Silence invites thoughts. The fan creates a sound floor. It masks the spikes in audio. It smooths out the world. There are apps now that replicate the sound of specific fans. Box fan, high setting. Oscillating fan, low. We have become connoisseurs of the drone. We are lulling ourselves with the sound of motors. Let us consider the bivouac, the soldier's sleep, or the climber's emergency sleep. You do not have a tent, you dig a hole in the snow. Or you wrap yourself in a tarp. You sleep with one eye open. You sleep with your rifle or your e-sax. This is tactical sleep. It is shallow. It is ready. It connects us to the prey animals, the deer, the gazelle, who sleep in short bursts, ears twitching. It is a reminder that deep sleep is a privilege of safety. Let us look at the sleeping car on the train. The Pullman Porter, the Orient Express, the rhythm of the rails. Click, clack, click, clack. It is a heartbeat rhythm. The bed folds down from the wall. The space is tiny, efficient. Wood paneling, a small lamp. The landscape rushing by outside the window is a blur of darkness and occasional lights. You are moving while you are still. There is a profound comfort in being carried. You surrender the navigation to the engineer. You are a package being delivered to the morning. Let us talk about the dream incubation of the modern era. Lucid dreaming, the attempt to wake up inside the dream, to control it. People keep dream journals. They do reality checks during the day, looking at their hands, checking clocks, so that they will do them in the dream and realize they are dreaming. It is an attempt to colonize the night, to turn the playground of the subconscious into a workspace or a virtual reality game. It is the refusal to surrender, control. But let's go back to the simple yawn, the pandemic of the yawn. You see someone, yawn, you yawn. Even reading the word yawn makes you want to do it. Are you doing it now? Animals do it. Dogs, lions, birds. It cools the brain, it stretches the jaw muscles. But it is also a social signal. It says, I am lowering my guard. We are safe here. We can rest. It is a pact of peace. Let us look at the night porter, the night watchman, the person who stays awake so the city can sleep. The baker, waking up at 3:00 a.m. to start the dough. The smell of yeast in the dark, the warmth of the ovens, the cleaner, buffing the floors of the empty office building. There is a quiet camaraderie in the night shift. The city is different. It is theirs. The silence of the streets is their domain. Let us consider the Sunday nap, the accidental sleep. You are reading a book on the couch. The sun is streaming in through the window, hitting your legs. Dust motes are dancing. The book gets heavy. The eyelids flutter. You don't decide to sleep. Sleep takes you. It is a gentle abduction. You wake up 20 minutes later, disoriented, thirsty, with a crease on your cheek from the cushion. The light has changed. You have traveled. This is the sweetest sleep, the sleep that is stolen from the day. Let us return to the room. We have slept in the longhouse and the igloo. We have slept on the waterbed in the train. We have clutched the teddy bear and the sword. We have listened to the shipping forecast and the saga. The history is a heavy blanket. It is woven from millions of threads. Every thread is a night spent by a human being on this planet. You are adding your thread to night. The loom is clicking slowly. Click, click, click. The pattern is intricate, but the feeling is simple. It is the feeling of gravity winning. It is the feeling of the knot untying. The ship is in the harbor. The anchor is down. The sails are furled. The water is lapping against the hull, gentle, rhythmic, dark. There is no more wind. There is only the drift. You are drifting. The shoreline is fading. The open sea of sleep lies ahead. It is vast. It is calm. It is yours. Rest in the boat. Let the current take you. We are not closing the book. We are just dimming the light to the lowest setting. The story waits in the dark. It will be there when you wake. The silence has become absolute. It is no longer just the absence of sound, it is a presence in itself. It fills the room like a heavy, transparent fluid, pressing gently against the windows, holding the world outside at bay. We have reached the deep waters of the night. The current has slowed to a near standstill. We are drifting on a flat, obsidian lake of quiet. We have traveled far. We have rested in the trees of the Pliocene and the sleep pods of the future. We have felt the rough straw of the medieval mattress and the cool silk of the emperor's robe. We have heard the rooster, the factory, whistle, and the soft digital beep of the modern alarm. But now the journey is ending. The boat is nudging against the shore. Before we tie the final knot, before we extinguish the last lantern on the dock, I have one final silent request. I want you to perform a mental scan of your body, starting from the toes and moving up to the crown of your head. As you pass each muscle group, imagine a switch being flipped off. A small, audible click. Click at the feet, click at the calves, click at the knees, click at the thighs, click at the hips, click at the stomach, click at the hands, click at the shoulders, click at the neck, click behind the eyes. The machine is powering down. The lights on the dashboard are fading. Let us consider the final frontier of sleep, the mystery. We still do not fully know why we sleep. We know it cleans the brain. We know it repairs the body. But why do we dream? Why do we hallucinate every night? Perhaps it is because we need to practice being something else. In the dream, we are not bound by physics. We are not bound by time. We are pure consciousness. Sleep is the daily reminder that we are more than just biology. We are storytellers. We are travelers. And the darkness. Why do we fear it, yet need it? The dark is the canvas. Without the dark, we cannot see the stars. Without the dark, we cannot see the inner light of the dream. We need the shadow to define the form. Sleep is the shadow that defines our waking life. Think of the billions of people sleeping right now. A wave of rest moving across the planet. As the sun sets in one time zone, millions of eyes close. It is a wave of peace, a wave of vulnerability. For 8 hours, the soldier puts down the gun, the banker stops counting. The politician stops speaking, the worker stops building. For 8 hours, we are all innocent. We are all equal in the kingdom of sleep. The king and the pauper breathe the same air, dream the same dreams. It is the great leveler. It is the great unifier, and you are part of that wave. You are part of that great silent choir. The history of sleep is not in the books. It is not in the museums. It is in you. It is in the genetic memory of your cells. You know how to do this. You have done it since before you were born, floating in the warm dark of the womb. It is the most natural thing in the universe. So, let us close the book. Imagine a heavy, leather-bound volume. The pages are thick, cream-colored paper. The ink is black. You close the cover. It makes a soft, dull thud. You place the book on the nightstand. You blow out the candle. The small flame flickers, dances for a second, and then vanishes. A thin ribbon of smoke rises, smelling of beeswax and wick. The room is dark. The bed is warm. The pillow is cool. The blanket is heavy. The breath is slow. There's nothing left to do. There's nowhere left to go. There's nothing left to learn. The history is written. The day is done. The night is here. And it is yours. Sleep, sleep, sleep.